launching into February's matches here. This is post-commentary for Life's easiness for me. We keep a 2-land hand with a Mana Dork and Omnath, pretty solid start. And we get going, and we come into the bane of the current format. This is, as we see here with Kiora, this is mono green devotion, and I still haven't figured out how the heck to fight this deck. I genuinely don't know how. As you'll see here, they can just get some insane starts. When the point I came to record this, I was already like 5 games into the session, and 4 of them had been mono green devotion, so here's what happens. I basically say, if I don't hit my land drop here, I'm going to concede to save time, because as you'll see in the rest of this video, a lot of matches against this deck are horrendous. They hit a null growth troll, and we basically take 2 here because we need our Mana Dork. We don't hit a land, I just choose to concede to save time. Yes, that was a little premature, but I genuinely think this deck is going to get banned out from under it. It's struggling. So we add a Solar Blaze and take out a Law Mage's Binding. Ultimately, we've got to just kill their creatures, keep their devotion down. I probably need sideboard ways to deal with the Nykthos if it doesn't get banned coming up. We keep a really solid hand here, so we drop a land that will come into play tapped either way to Growth Spiral on turn 2. Dropping into play Sacred Foundry, tap to save some life. We can have Fabled Passage. We have a Assassin's Trophy on the thing here. They load up their land, so what I decided to do is drop here and go through to their turn, which was a mistake. I should have Assassin's Trophied here because they have Nykthos. They go for Kiora, so in response I choose to destroy their land, basically cutting them off from a huge punch of devotion and mana that they could uncap with Kiora. But as we just in here, this is just, there's no real way to stop this deck. They get a Cavalier, they're now up to 5 devotion. We have a 5/6 hitting us in the face. They've drawn a card. If we kill it, they get back their Karn, which is another card I really want banned from this format. They mill a Storm the Festival, so they have like another way to get it back. So we Vanishing Verse. We've got 2 Nibs in hand. We drop our turn and we go with a basic here. So our plan is to go for a Niv reload and try to survive. Put Urine into hand to just pass through because I'm just frustrated. Our opponent goes Wolfwillow Haven up to 3 devotion, and I just choose to concede here. I'm just frustrated with this deck. They're clearly tapping to have something else in their hand, and Kiora can untap the devotion land, so I'm just done. I think this deck is going to get a ban out from under it. Like back when Pioneer was invented, mono green was a horrendous deck, and it's kind of going back towards that. Next match here is up against Xion, and we get 3 lands, a mana ramp, and 2 board wipes, so let's hope for a creature deck. They drop, it's Raktos. Another, people say, bane of the format. However, I think Raktos is a fair deck that I don't feel like snowballs if you have answers to it. They drop a Fable. Now we have a choice here. I choose to go for the Growth Spiral because we can then drop the Paradise Druid, which gives us a easy to deal with thing here. However, I fail to think they could have an Edict effect like Liliana. And we see here, if I remember this match correctly, they go for a 4-Z's. This is pretty good for us here, so they can take out our Clarion, but we still have 1 board wipe in hand, so let's just hope they don't have another discard. Except they have Angra's Rampage. Edict us, make us lose our creature, which is an interesting choice because we have the Supreme Verdict, which we can just drop now to save some damage. I would like to wait for the Fable to flip, but that's another turn of getting hit that I don't want to take a chance on. Our opponent hits their 5th land way before us, activates the Eye of the Tyrant, gets rid of our Vanishing Verse, no, our Paradise Druid. We hit our 5th land drop, and all of our effects are flash or instant speed, so I choose to leave them here. He goes to combat and goes for the attack, so I decide I'm going to use Kolaghan's Command, make them discard. I just want to get some of their action out of their hand. The fact they didn't play a creature really makes me think that they're running more interaction in hand, which is proved when they drop a push into the graveyard. Hold up what we've got, we draw another land and we'll pass. The only thing the opponent doesn't know about is the Leyline Binding. We get Bone Stomp down to 7. We're holding Vanishing Verse because we can get rid of the Hive Tyrant with that. I choose to flash in a Law Mage's Binding because I'm not sure of the interaction between Hive of the Hive Tyrant and Auras when they creature headlands when they transform back. We take 2 on that and we go down to 5. Another Blood Tithe Harvester comes down. Let's see what we draw here. We get another land, so I ultimately concede because we are just dead next turn. Well, we use all our lands, but we're close to dead. That was a little premature, I'll admit, in hindsight. Alright, we go into our next one as our opponent thinks on what to do. Yeah, so what I thought would happen would they would swing with the Blood Tithe Harvester and the Hive of the Eye Tyrant, which would leave us dead. We'd use both our removal spells on them, which in hindsight, I guess I must have forgot that I could get rid of the land with the Vanishing Verse. Alright, match 2. We drop a Triome, and we get Duress turn 1. So we lose our Fable, which would have been nice. Turn 2, they drop the Blood Tithe. We go on to turn 3 and drop our Wandering Mind. We find a good slew of spells here. I go with Kolaghan's Command because I'm assuming they're digging for Thoughtseize, and Kolaghan's Command can buy us back our Niv if it gets Thoughtseized. Opponent goes in with a Blood Tithe. I choose to trade here because odds are it's going to get removed anyway, so we might as well take one of their creatures with us. We have the Kolaghan's Command in hand here, and we see what they do on their turn. They drop 2 cards, hit their 4th land drop. So in combat, to try and save it from mana here, I go for a returning the Wandering Mind and pinging the Goblin before they make treasure. I do it at the beginning of combat to avoid an activation of the creature land. They drop their 2nd Fable of the Mirror Breaker. We draw a 2nd Mizzet, so we go for the reload with Niv.
Reload!
We hit 3 cards, which is pretty solid here. We have double removal, a Clarion, double removal and a Sweeper, sorry. Their first Fable flips. We just got to dodge hard removal or edict effects here to keep Niv alive, but they have the Invoke Despair. So they remove and draw because, you know, that's how Magic cards are designed now. I decided to go for the Clarion here to clear out their board and Vanishing Verse the Fable before they get another flip from it. And then drop a tapped Shockland. They could activate their Hive land here. I'm just hoping they have action in hand they want to deploy. And they go for blank, which is interesting. So we drop one of our Wandering Minds. And they drop another Blood Tithe Harvester. So on our turn, we go for our 2nd Niv of the match.
Reload!
2 here, Growth Spiral and Vanishing Verse. Now here's a fun thing. They drop a Blood Tithe Harvester, and they go to sack the first Blood Tithe Harvester to kill Niv. So in response, I try to kill one of the blood. So they can choose to loot or keep a land here. I go for this play because they've got enough lands. So they loot away, Niv loses some points and goes down to 2. They deploy their 3rd Fable, so we just don't have to worry about it. And we hit our boy Omnath. We drop him onto the board and draw a card. Play a land to gain some life back. Move to combat and swing in. Put him on a very quick clock here. 3 turns with Niv, even less if we can get through with our Omnath. Opponent loots away their extra land drops. Kills our Omnath with the Blood Tithe Harvester. They play a Croxer. So I choose on my turn to get rid of the Growth Spiral because we're pretty set for lands here. And they have enough to escape Croxer. So Croxer comes out. And I notice that I have enough lands here to Yorion Niv next turn. So I take out their token, so we don't have to worry about getting hit. Discard a Wandering Mind, swing in with Niv, and basically play for the whole turn a Yorion into Niv to get our 3rd Niv activation of the round. We only hit 2 cards here, but that's buffer against Croxer. We have 2 cards here for dealing with Croxer. So they play a land and they activate the Castle Garenbrig and draw no action till they pass. Going into the next round, we know they have Croxer, so we bring in the few other pieces of coloured removal and basically go down to mana dorks because they've displayed Angrath's Rampage and I assume they must also be running Liliana. And we move into the final match. When our opponent chooses to go first, because we all know the opponent's going first. This hand is interesting. Do I keep it or not? I don't remember. I recorded this a couple of days ago. Alright, we keep it. Yeah, we are basically 1 white away from the free spells in our hand, and if we can top deck a blue, Omnath is online. We dodge a turn 1 Thoughtseize and top deck a white source, so now we have all 5 colours with the Fable Passage. And we top deck a blue source, which is great for us. So, I shock in here to hold up a Vanishing Verse in case they have a play, but they don't. And I choose to drop my Fable of the Mirror Breaker on my turn. They go for the Bone Crusher to kill it. On their turn they drop a land and drop a Sheldred. So in an upkeep before we draw, we Vanishing Verse it so we don't take any damage at all. And draw another land. So I choose to drop one of our shock lands here because we have all our colours covered. Play a tap land and pass. Our opponent doesn't really do anything. It's very clear they kept a hand solely on the strength of Sheldred, since they haven't interacted with us really anyway or disrupted our hand. So they go for a go blank. We trust the extra Clarion and an extra land. They drop a Blood Type Harvester, so they've got nothing in hand and no way to kill Omnath. So we flip our reflections, drop Omnath, draw a card, play the Fable, crack the Fable. We now have enough mana to get a land, get the second activation, Potable Hold the Blood Type Harvester, and use the excess mana to throw Yorion into hand for some blinky shenanigans. We pass the turn. Our opponent drops a Bone Crusher Giant. Thoughtseizes us, so in response we'll Leyline Binding, get rid of the Bone Crusher. They take Yorion. We attack in for 6. Our opponent draws and Crumbly concedes because I guess they had no good draws there. Good back and forth match. Felt pressured, but at the same time felt pretty strong. We have one more daily left to cover, so let's get our third match in. And I will warn once again, we run into the bane of my existence, Mono Green Devotion. And I've kept this match in to show just how absurd this deck can go. We keep 4 lands with a Mana Dork and a Wandering Mind to dig. Early game building here. Opponent drops a Wolfwillow Haven, so I know it's Devotion. Drop a Paradise Druid. We have a Niv, so we can build towards that as fast as possible. Opponent's on 4 mana, so they could Karn, or they could Kiora, untap, play another 2 Mana Dorks. They've got 1 card in hand, so I'm hoping it's not too absurd. I drop a land here and go for the Wandering Mind to dig for an answer, which is unfortunate because I choose not to get Fable because a 2-2 doesn't do much on this board. And I don't suspect us to be alive much longer. Opponent taps 4 mana, untaps, so they have 7-8 mana. I think they draw the Karn, which is another card I feel needs to be banned. It's basically just a sideboard tutor, but ultimately it is another thing that costs us the game here. They get a God Pharaoh statue, which is terrible for us because next turn they can just go stupid. So we shock in here and we go for a Niv because we need an answer to that as fast as possible. We hit Angrath's Rampage, which is here. I hit Karn to prevent them from tutoring another card out of their sideboard and drop the Law Mage's Binding. They throw a World Tree out, meaning that they've got some spice in the deck. It's not just the list, but it's the same as every other one. 6 mana, they drop a God Pharaoh's Gift. They choose not to animate it because they're worried about my removal. On my turn, I shock in a land, use the expensive rampage to make him sack an artifact, move to combat, use an attack, Kiora and Khan to remove them from the game. We have 2 mana open here, so I choose to leave up a Leyline Binding for the next big threat they play. They get the Nykthos land, so we took out the Planeswalkers pretty post-haste here. Opponent goes in on the attack and I decide to Vanishing Verse just to get rid of more of their devotion if possible. Play an Omnath, draw a card, drop a Fabled Passage which gains its life. We go to sack it and our opponent concedes because we got a superior board presence. After seeing that, you might think that we'd be okay against this deck, so I try bringing in Thoughtseize and some counters to disrupt their huge Planeswalkers or their Disruption Festivals or Storm the Festivals. Vanishing Verse is kind of awkward. It can hit their big bombs, but at the same time it can't hit their things. So ultimately I go back and forth and I'm still trying to figure out how this deck can actually be countered. Right, match 2. We can ramp here into a Fable, however one thing I forget is that Khan shuts off treasures, so this isn't really ramp. They get a turn 2 4/4. We Vanishing Verse it to keep their devotion down. They drop a World Tree, another Elvish Mystic. We drop a Fable of the Mirror Breaker to get some ramp going. They play Cavalier of Thorns. So their devotion has now gone back up to 5. If they have a Nykthos land, which they do, it's going to basically be all over for us next turn. Because you just know the cards in their hand are going to be active. I consider using Wandering Mind, however I decide that attacking in here, trading with our opponent and using the treasure to drop a Niv before we see a Khan come down is better. I take Culligan's Command to kill whatever that Khan gets, because we know they're going to play it. And our opponent basically, if I remember correctly, has just got Storm the Festival into like a perfect play here. They drop 5 mana into it, go up to 7, up to 9 mana. Oh no, they play a Ferocious Hydra and fight Niv to kill it. They swing in and kill us. We get a blocker here. I use Wandering Mind here to dig. We find a Leyline Binding which can take out the Hydra, which is the big issue here because it has trample. And then we'll pass the turn. Opponent has gone down to 1 card in hand. So surely it's not a stupidly relevant card that's going to be crazy. Oh no, it's just Storm the Festival. They hit a Nissa, which gives them double mana, which is enough for them to Storm the Festival again. So this match is just over because this deck is stupid and I really want it to be banned. I think it will be because I noticed that a lot of content creators have announced they're not playing Pioneer or Explorer until this deck goes because they're tired of playing against it. And I'm kind of with them on it. We force them to sack their mana dork to try and disrupt them as much as possible. Turn 2 they play a Lone Speaker. We take turn 3 to drop the Fable of the Mirror Breaker here. Our mana's a bit awkward because we need double white for the Supreme Verdict. Opponent does some Wolf Willow Haven shenanigans and basically goes up to 4 devotion. So ultimately here I decide I attack, see if they want to trade. They don't because they want to keep their devotion. And then I go back and forth on what I want to do. Ultimately decide to go with Omnath, draw a card, get a land, gain 4 life. And this is where things go stupid. So 6 mana, they Storm the Festival. They hit both Kiora and Khan. So now Kiora untaps Nykthos or the land or whatever it does. Yep, they had a second Nykthos, you know, because that's it. And ultimately I decide to concede from this game because this was not even a match. They have Cavalier of Thorns here, so next turn they have enough mana to Storm from the graveyard, get something back with Khan. Khan can get something stupidly huge. Yep, Cityscape Leveler. And yeah, so here's my big problem. I go here for the board wipe to reduce their devotion, but I don't have double white. So I attack in to make a treasure for getting Khan's static ability, and that cost me the game. But see, here's, as I said before, here's the issue. Even if I kill them with the... and see here, I realize I can't do it, so I'm looking for a way to leyline binding, do something. But there's no way to effectively reduce their devotion low enough that it would matter, so ultimately concede the game. Because, you know, this was truly a fun match of Magic.